Greetings and welcome to this Sunday service of the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship here in Durham, North Carolina, on the ancestral lands of the Saponi, Shakori, Sissipaha, Eno, and Lumbee people. I am Reverend Jacqueline Brett. And whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race, your gender, whomever you love, we welcome you. If you are visiting with us for the first time, or maybe it's even the second time, we invite you now to put your name in the chat box where we're sure someone will welcome you. We also invite you to attend the Inquirer's class for visitors and newcomers, which takes place at about 10 of 12 today on Zoom. And for everyone else, you are invited to a virtual coffee hour, which takes place directly after this service. Information on how to get to both of these events via Zoom will appear in the chat box at the end of the service. This morning, we have a guest preacher, and that is Dr. Elías Ortega, who is the president of Meadville Lombard Theological School, one of the two UU seminaries in the country, where he is also professor of religion, ethics, and leadership. Dr. Ortega's work brings together academic expertise in sociology and ethics with a commitment to community engagement. Today's music is provided by Kate Lewis on piano, and Joan Tillman is our cantor. Today's tech team is Michelle Sager and Jenny Jolly, and Scott Gaskins is our sound engineer. So, Let us now center ourselves into this time and the place where you are, with all of us knowing that we are joining together. Let's all take a deep breath in and let it out. We continue our service with the prelude by Kate Lewis.
Across the distance, from the safety of our homes, we come together this morning at this particular time to co-create a sacred community. A community where we are invited to live our lives weaved together by the hope of covenant. A covenant that calls us in to restore ourselves from our journeys. A covenant that calls us to be active repairers of the harms we encounter in the world. A covenant that charges us with the generational task of rebuilding a world shaped by justice. When we gather in this place, in the hope of our covenant and in worship, we weave together the strands of our different walks of life. With our different experiences, our multiple perspectives, our agreements and disagreements, seeking a space of restoration. That is to say, that we are gathered with a singular hope to live our lives into the commitment of making the beloved community a reality. Let us worship.
We light our chalice this morning for the light of truth and the warmth of love, the heart of covenant and beloved community. We're going to sing together now. Joan is going to lead us in When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. You can sing along at home. The words will be on your screen.
When our hearts are in a holy place, when our hearts are in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our hearts are in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each one of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our hearts are in a holy place. When our hearts are in a holy place, when our hearts are in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our hearts are in a holy place, when we tell our stories from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voice in each other's words, then our hearts are in a holy place. When our hearts are in a holy place, when our hearts are in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our hearts are in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs inside, and we feel the power of our shared faith, then our hearts are in a holy place, then our hearts are in a holy place.
How wonderful that our hearts are together in this holy time, this holy place this morning. Well, happy August 1st. Can you believe that it's August already? This strange year, this strange time that we're in. I am so delighted to be back this morning after taking some time off this summer to decompress. It was a kind of a detox from the stress of the last year, and I am finally feeling more like myself again. And I'm especially glad to be here this day because August 1st, 2008 was the day that I started my ministry at ERUUF. That was 14 years ago this day. That's 14 trips around the sun. That's just delightful to me. This morning, I want to give you an update on where we are with our COVID safety policies. In June, we were thrilled that the CDC in the state of North Carolina said that it was safe for vaccinated folks to take off their masks indoors so we changed our guidelines to allow people to meet indoors on campus without masks in groups of adults if everyone in the group agrees. Since then, scientists have been learning more about the Delta variant and how it's spreading, which is more rapidly than the original virus. And it appears now that vaccinated people can carry and spread the virus, often without any symptoms. So now the CDC in the state of North Carolina recommend that in areas where the virus is spreading rapidly, that people wear masks indoors. Now, so far, Durham County is one of the very few places in the country where the outbreak rate is not yet high. So our safety policies have not yet changed. But we've learned how the virus operates, right? It just doesn't observe county borders. It doesn't observe national borders. And so it's pretty clear that it's just a matter of time before we are going to need to change our policies. So stay tuned. We also know that all of us are eager, even a little desperate, to be able to meet again regularly in person, and we know how important this is for everyone's mental health, especially our kids, especially people who are vulnerable. So, as always, our number one goal is to be, it continues to be safety for everyone, especially for the most vulnerable among us. People who cannot take the vaccine for whatever reasons, because they're too young, or because they have immune deficiency issues, or whatever. We understand how isolation is wearing on all of us terribly. Especially, can you imagine being vulnerable and having to feel, that burden on top of everything else? So keeping at the center of our policy making is in accord with our core values: equity, inclusion, true belonging, compassion. And these are some of the core reasons that ERUUF feels so much like home to so many of us. And it also then makes it hard to remember that it's actually a public space where we welcome all people who want to meet with us, and we hope who share our values will want to choose this as their community too. So it's just important to remember that the guidelines for public spaces are different than the guidelines for private homes or other groups that we might belong to that are private. And when it's necessary, we will wear masks and we will keep a 6-foot distance to help keep ourselves and others safe. So over the next few weeks, we're going to review our policies, our safety policies, and our plans to offer both in-person and online worship and programs for all ages in the fall in the safest way possible. We're going to figure out the safest way and the best ways that we can be community together. So stay tuned and know that our updates to our policies will be coming soon, and more information about fall programs too. And now we'll continue our service. Dr. Ortega has the reading for us this morning.
I would like to share with you a selection from Anakaram, a book of Celtic wisdom by John O'Donoghue, of a section of his work titled Heartful Work Brings Beauty. When you consider it, the world of your action and activity is a very precious world. What you do should be worthy of you. It should be worthy of your attention and dignity, and conform to your respect for yourself. If you can love what you do, will do it beautifully. You may not love your work at the beginning, yet the deeper side of your soul can help you bring the light of love to what you do. Then regardless of what you do, you will do it in a creative and transformative way. There is an opposite story about a Zen monk in Japan. The emperor had an absolutely magnificent vase that was ancient and intricately beautiful. One day, someone let the vase fall, and it split into millions of fragments. The fragments were gathered up, and the best potter in the land was called to resemble the vase. He came, but failed. He paid for his failure by losing his head. The emperor ordered the next best potter, and he also failed. This continued for weeks until finally all the best artists in the land have died, having failed to reassemble the broken, beautiful vase. There was only one artist left, an old Zen monk who lived in a cave in the mountains. He had a young apprentice. The monk came and collected all the fragments himself and brought them back to his workshop. For weeks and weeks he worked until finally the vase was there again. The apprentice looked at it and thought how beautiful it was. The two of them made the journey to the city and brought the vase into the palace. The emperor and all his courtesans beamed in admiration at the beauty of the reassembled vase. The old monk was graciously rewarded. He and his young apprentice went back to their cave in the mountains. Then one day, the young apprentice was looking for something and unexpectedly came upon the fragments of the vase. He ran it to his master. "Look at all the fragments of the vase. You never assembled them all. How did you make a vase as beautiful as the ancient one that was broken?" The old master said, "If you do the work that you do from a loving heart, then you will always be able to make something beautiful."
I invite you to join me now for a time of meditation. And this is also by John O'Donohue. It is called A Blessing. May the light of your soul guide you. May the light of your soul bless the work you do with the secret love and warmth of your heart. May you see in what you do the beauty of your own soul. May the sacredness of your work bring healing, light, and renewal to those who work with you and to those who see and receive your work. May your work never weary you. May it release within you well springs of refreshment, inspiration, and excitement. May you never become lost in the bland absences. May the day never burden. May dawn find you awake and alert, approaching your new day with dreams, possibilities, and promises. May evening find you gracious and fulfilled. May you go into the night blessed, sheltered, and protected. May your soul calm, restore, and renew you. Amen. Ashe.
Good morning, members and friends of the ERUUF Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. My name is Dr. Elías Ortega, and I serve as president of Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago, Illinois. And today, I would love to share a word with you of a sermon that I have entitled, Stewards of Our Chosen Faith. I count myself fortunate to have made Unitarian Universalism my faith home. This choice afforded me a place of refuge in a time of personal, intellectual, and spiritual need. I hazard a guess that for many of us, we may feel the same way. I often, when thinking about my beginnings in Unitarian Universalism, think of the words of a poem by Gil Ozier titled Refuge. I tell you this, I am the only part of winter left. It beckoned and I followed past all reasons, follow it like the end of a broken train through white woods. And I stayed with simple tools, set on trying to construct more of a season. It has taken all of me to do it, and you will not believe the storms. You will not believe how I sleep. From here, anything would sound like a cry. Anything looks like pieces of God. At this moment, I wish for us to pause, take a deep breath, and rest for a moment. Let us consider those last few verses and spend some time with them pondering the mystery of finding a place of refuge in our chosen faith. It has taken all of me to do it, and you will not believe the storms. Many of us here today, in your homes, and thinking that someday with the hope of being gathered again in person, have journeyed on through many a story days and many a season to find in Unitarian Universalism and in Inner River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship a faith home. You will not believe how I sleep. From here, anything would sound like a cry. This journey has brought joy to us, but if you're honest, we have also experienced pain. Everything looks like pieces of God. Yet, in spite of all that we have experienced in our faith journey, or because of it, here we are, gathered in fellowship. Many of us have experienced Unitarian Universalism as a religious homecoming of sorts, a place where everything may look like pieces of the divine, a God that we can name by many names and understand in many different ways. Many of us have sat in chairs in a sanctuary and were able to take a breath of fresh air and take the risk to be faithful once again. We have found a place of refuge at last. And once we arrive at the place and we feel safe, we may even start taking the risk of opening ourselves to others, fueled by the kindness and compassion that has been extended to us. There's a question that has been turning on my head for a number of years, and it's connected to this chosen faith as a place of refuge for me. Why do you choose to remain you? Yuri Yamamoto, a religious professional of color who also shared words with you earlier this month, asked me and other religious professionals of color that question during one of our collaborations. I experienced this as a profound and direct query. Why do I choose to remain you? I need to be honest and share with you that at first, when Judy first asked that question, I was stumped by it. Something about it just felt a little off-field. It was not the traditional, and if I'm honest, not as interesting question. And also much simpler question, why haven't you left? In asking the question, of why do you remain you, I came to face with the realization that for me, it was really a choice. It was a choice that helped me stake a claim on the promise of the expansiveness of our faith over and against the structures and dynamic that may have plotted to convince me that this was not my home. I must also admit that answering that question, why do I choose and continue to choose to be you, was not particularly easy to answer then and has gained dimensions today. But I can say that at that time, after mulling on it for a while, I realized that my inability to give a full answer to that question when Judy first asked it was connected to a larger issue with our faith movement, the why of our faith. As a faith movement, we can talk about the things that we do. We have stories to tell of the justice work that we do, and we ought to be proud of it. Of the spaces that we open to explore faithful belonging in a pluralistic and multi-religious setting. I am confident that we can speak with eloquence about how do we go about doing what we do. You see, because we can tell stories of the ways that we show up. We show up, we protest, we gather funds, we support communities of needs and individuals. We train with others to do works of justice. Furthermore, we create worship experiences that nourishes our souls and captivate our imagination. And that is to say that we can name what we do. We can also identify how we go about doing our business in this labor of faith. However, when it comes to the why do we do what we do as a faith community, then things can get a little fuzzy. Pondering back at the answer that I gave then, why do I remain you? I can say with conviction that with some changes, maybe expansions, it have remained the same. The reason I remained a you is because it is the faith home of my children. It is the faith community in which my partner and I have committed to raising our children. And it is also the place where I and us as a family were extended refuge. And because of that, I feel a responsibility to nurturing and co-creating with our children a faith that sustains them. A faith that not only sustain them, but that nurture their own spiritual journey and my own as well. A faith that not only nurture us as a family, but that we hope can rekindle faithful imaginations to think, how do we inspire our children and the young and our newcomers to seek that which move us through the renewal of the Spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. As I inch closer to my second decade of being a UU, I still feel that this is my spiritual home. It is my chosen faith. My experience as a UU has allowed me to experience a degree of healing, a degree of centering, and a recommitment to a religious life that I thought doubtful during and after my seminary years. In Unitarian Universalism, I was able to find a place to wrestle with the questions of faith that captivated my imagination in the first time and led me to seminary. Some answers to some of these questions, I think that I have found at least temporary answers, but to many of them, I am searching for, and that inspires me to be better and learn deeply of this faith community. But I can also say that not everything has been good. There is much that I love about being Unitarian Universalism. And I think that some of these things will resonate with the reasons that many of us have remained committed to being a UU. Among these, I can name the strong moral compass of our religious tradition that affirms the dignity and works of justice for all. The challenge to be a spiritual seeker and to be open to new ways of understanding, of being in the world, and seeking to be agents of compassion and workers for a better tomorrow. There are also other experiences that have been painful and somewhat disconcerting in my own journey. And these experiences are centered around being a person of color in a mostly white religious community. At a time in which I found UUism, I was willing to negotiate the ways in which I would interact or not in a racial way. That is to say, I would pick and choose if, when, and how to engage in racial-based conversations. While this may sound odd to some, it is a rather common experience for people of color in the United States and in other places as well. We call this code switching, and it is a necessary skill for our survival and health. We learn how to negotiate context by learning particular ways of interacting and choosing how to modulate and present ourselves in particular context. Oftentimes we do this as a way to rest for a while of long journeys. However, my partner and I needed to have a conversation about how deeply we were going to commit to this faith community, and starting to ask those questions of our level of commitment help us to broaden our understanding, not only of the faith, but our understanding of community, and deeper than that, it helps us to consider the ways in which we need it to be real UUs. For us, that would entail a deeper commitment of our part of how do we face the ways in which our newfound spiritual home at times resembles some of the dynamics that we have left behind in our former home, Christianity. For us, and for me especially, such engagement with my religious past led me to ask new questions. And among them, I will name a more faithful question. What is my role to care for and nurture our chosen faith, Unitarian Universalism? To nurture and care for this faith as an inheritance that I can be proud of to entrust unto others to tend, to take hold, and to make their own. That is a faithful question. In pondering this question, I find inspiration in the work of James Luther Adams, a Unitarian theologian, and in particularly his essay, A Faith for the Free. This essay has given me much to think about, and from it I want to draw 3 insights to share with you. The first insight is that this essay has forced me to come to the realization that I need to take ownership for my role in promoting the vitality and health of Unitarian Universalism as a faith for today. In that essay, James Luther Adams reminds us that an unexamined faith is not worth having. Those are his words. An unexamined faith is not worth having. For us, this may mean that if we do not carefully consider why we remain in this faith tradition, we are selling short the legacy of liberal religion. And also, how do we create, foment, and nurture our communities? The second insight that I draw from this essay is that he shared with us that the roots of faith grow in the individual, in each one of us, happens as one participates in worship, education, socially active fellowship of the church. At the heart of this perspective, I think, lies the reality that our lives as UU need to bear the imprint of how this faith provides a faithful compass that guides our collective efforts to deepen not only our spiritual journey, but the ways in which we strive to inspire one another to join with curiosity in answering the question, what does our faith mean for us today? And the last insight that I'll draw from James Luther Adams' essay is one that I find myself particularly challenged by. A private commitment to Unitarian Universalism has a public outflow. Our faith, as the free faith of free people, needs to be tangible to the search to live in a community of human dignity and equal justice. Such a faith is an adequate faith. As James Luther Adams concluded, the faith of a church is an adequate faith only when it inspires persons to give of their time and energy to shape the various institutions, social, economic, and political, of their common life. That is, to tend to our faith community. I believe in the promise of Unitarian Universalism as a faith for today, a promise, as I understand it, to help heal a wounded world, a promise to do the work to live out of our deepest aspirations. I think that drinking deeply from our sources of inspiration and living life that draw nourishment from our shared principles will go a long, long way in taking us where we can be a beacon of faith. This promise requires a commitment to nurturing our own liberation by taking our faith with the seriousness that it requires. We are inheritors of a religious tradition that affirms the inherent worth and dignity of human, and that call us into accountable interdependence for our mutual thriving. We are stewards of this tradition, and as stewards, ours is the task of tending and nurturing it. Faith work is transformative work, not only for us as a community today, but also to those who are yet to come and join in our work, and join us in the task of making the world more compassionate and more just. And in so doing, we can work to leave behind an inheritance that inspire our children and their children and their children's children to be keepers of the flame of Unitarian Universalism. Being a member of this faith community is not a luxury, nor a commodity to be hoarded, but an investment into our mutual thriving. And an investment that is powered by a faith that whispers into our spirits tidings of good news, of hope for a better world. May we be faithful stewards of this, our chosen faith. May it be so, and blessed be.
What an inspiring message. We are stewards of our liberal religious tradition, which is focused on justice and equity and compassion. And that important question, what is your role? What is your role in nurturing our Unitarian Universalist faith? This is why we give our time, we give our talent, and we also give our treasure. Meadville Lombard is one of 2 theological schools that specifically prepare Unitarian Universalists, specifically for Unitarian Universalist ministry. And that's their mission, to prepare people to step out into the contemporary world, to move out into the contemporary world in significant and important ways. So this morning, any financial gifts that are given in addition to regular pledges will be given to Meadville Lombard in support of their mission in the world. And you can have the opportunity now, as we listen to the offertory, you can go to our secure website and make a donation if you so choose. Thank you. We give thanks for all the gifts so generously given that support this beloved community and our ministry beyond our walls in the larger world. Our final hymn this morning is Answering the Call of Love. Ms. Joan will lead us in that right now, and the words will appear on your screen. You can sing along at home.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love, hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love, hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Heads joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
This morning, I will leave you with the words of Reverend Teresa Soto, a weaver of words who instructed us on how to create charms of hope. The first thing to do is to tie a string around your finger. Remember that you are not alone. Think of the ways that our best shared futures are braided inextricably with our own present and your destiny. The second thing is to untie the string and let the knots and tightness fall away. Let the burden of bleakness roll off your shoulders. Remember that persistence does not require all the answers up front, only one. And fortunately, all of us, we have one response: to remain together through awkward times and happy ones.